everyone, Lou here. Today I thought it'd be fun to do another anime versus video. If you guys don't know, this is a series of videos I do where I put together anime with either close similarities or remakes of each other against each other and see which one holds up. Today I'm doing that with Trigun versus Trigun Stampede. To start, both anime series are based off the manga series Trigun and its sequel Trigun Maximum from 1995 and 1997 respectively by Yasuhiro Naito. The manga series would get so popular at some point that famous studio Madhouse made an adaptation in 1998. For those who don't know, Madhouse is one of the reigning kings of critically acclaimed anime, as they've made Death Note, Wolf Children, Cardcaptor Sakura, and my personal favorite, Nana. Trigun's 90s adaptation wasn't very popular, but did become a cult classic for early 2000s anime fans, especially the ones in some niche corners like old anime message boards or very early DeviantArt. However, over the years, it has steadily gained notoriety thanks to its unique style of sci-fi and Western combination gaining more popularity as the years go on. Oh, also Madhouse made a side story that isn't canon called Trigun Badlands Rumble in 2010, but that was just a simple movie and not meant to be a reboot faithfully adapting the manga. See, Trigun is especially weird in its adaptation where it was relatively accurate, but a lot of major characters, motivations, and more were left on the cutting room floor. Examples would be characters like Levio, a deeper dive into Vash and Knives' origins, and everyone's reactions to being stranded on a desert planet. However, in the early 2020s would come hope for fans who wanted a reboot telling the full story of the manga, and that was Trigun Stampede by Studio Orange. This released in 2023 to massive critical praise over the 3D animation. See, anime has had a pretty extensive history where CGI isn't exactly the best thing ever. However, Studio Orange breaks the stigma and boundaries of 3D anime's potential with series like Hoseki no Kuni and Beastars. Although it was praised for its technical boundary breaks, it was still criticized by old Trigun fans for being too fast-paced, and manga fans for losing its Western fashion in favor of more contemporary styles to make the characters feel more fresh in today's fashion. That's what we're looking at today though. Which series was better? Which one told the story of Trigun not only better, but which one feels like the spirit of this beloved story of pacifism and hope? Spoilers for literally everything, by the way, and I do apologize I can't show much. There is some pretty heavy copyright for both series, so you're gonna have to forgive me for a gameplay substitute here. Okay, so I'm just gonna say it, but both series are definitely not manga accurate here. There's just too many differences in both to be a 100% accurate telling of the manga story, but Trigun Stampede does include a lot of the lore, characters, and motivations featured in the manga. Neither are winning points here for manga accuracy though. Let's at least see which adaptation is better at telling the kind of story the manga wanted to tell. Both stories are about Vash the Stampede, deemed a humanoid typhoon due to the trouble following him wherever he goes, that he now has billions of double dollars for his head. Meanwhile, he's followed by Meryl Streep, her brunette friend, and Nicholas D. Wolfwood. Yet Vash isn't actually the humanoid typhoon everyone thinks he is, but is actually a pacifist trying to do the right thing and to make up for the things he's done. In both cases, it's to confront his brother Knives, who is the reason all humans are stuck on the desert planet called No Man's Land, which was called Gunsmoke in the 90s anime, which I have to admit sounds a lot cooler than No Man's Land, so for the duration of this video I'll be calling it Gunsmoke just because it's admittedly a lot cooler. From there is themes of optimism, an environmental message on how humans destroy every planet we touch, and pacifism since Vash never wants to kill a single person. Vash often says love and peace, and I think that kind of describes the story really well, though the approach in Stampede is vastly different. Team Orange explained that Trigun Stampede's first season basically acts as a sort of prequel to the manga's events, even though it's not. It's still telling the story of the manga, but just further back. So we see how characters like Wolfwood, Meryl, and more grow as the story evolves. This is also why Millie is absent here, by the way. She quite literally hasn't been hired yet for her job. However, she's already confirmed to be in the second season, so... In Trigun, Millie Thompson was one of my favorite characters in the series, while in Trigun Stampede, she's temporarily replaced by Roberto De Niro, who acts as a sort of mentor figure to explain how Meryl ends up a bit more no-nonsense and feisty like she does in the 90s anime and manga. Which his name is, by the way, also obviously named after the actor, which I think is a funny reference to the fact that Trigun's manga takes heavy influence from American films, so... Millie and Meryl's jobs were also changed from insurance company girls doing a report on Vash the Stampede to see if he's really worth being claimed on insurance paperwork to reporters for a big newspaper on the planet. Which, in the manga, they're still insurance girls, but like, become reporters later. Honestly, them being reporters from day one makes way more sense to me. Although Roberto is written, like I said earlier, a mentor and guide for Meryl, he still feels like a character that's kind of redundant when Wolfwood is already our jaded hard ass. But I guess he doesn't last that long, so him not being a permanent addition is fine by me. Another massive difference in general is the pacing and approach to the manga story. 90s Trigun took a very slow approach to the story while also adding a lot more comedy relief for the audience. I originally didn't like this as I was watching it for the first few episodes just because I felt like it was a bit too slow, but as I kept watching, I found that I loved the slow burn approach to the story. You're left with a lot of mysteries throughout the story on who or what Vash is, and Wolfwood, as it comes together pretty satisfying to me. I mean, as it went on, I would sit there and try to theorize what was happening in the story, and when I got those answers, it felt like an aha moment that was actually really cool. That, and it added a lot more character relationships and dynamics, specifically Millie and Wolfwood, which is just definitely one of my favorite ships in Trigun, just because Jaded Asshole and Ball of Sunshine are peak romance to me. Of course, Trigun isn't about romantic love, it's about love for the people around you and not being a dick, so... These character relationships, thanks to its slow burn plot, really made scenes like Wolfwood's death a massive punch to the gut. Like, I would easily put his death in top 10 saddest anime deaths if you guys want to see that. Just because the slow burn and execution made his death for him feel unsatisfactory for us while we're all crying like it's Jujutsu Kaisen fans on Halloween. Trigun, on the other hand, goes full throttle and leaves no mystery or suspense in who or what Vash is. The first episode starts with the Seeds ship crashing onto Gunsmoke with Knives laughing maniacally, rather than giving us a mystery on if Vash maybe has a split personality or an evil twin like literally every other anime I'm watching and reading right now. Cause seriously, if I had $1 for every time I watched an anime that had a surprise evil twin, I think I'd probably be a millionaire. Anyway though, this doesn't make the series bad either. Instead, they give you these really awesome big sci-fi lore chunks that make the story just as interesting, as you're wondering where the next episode is going to go with things or a story like this. Like, the deeper dive into plants, like in the manga, compared to the original anime, was just absolutely fascinating to me, and I think the plants here actually look really gorgeous. Which, by the way, forgot to mention, but plants are man-made alien thingies that can create water and sustain life for humans that live in a light bulb looking container. Except there are independent plants who act completely human, except they don't age and will eventually die if they use too much of their power at once, or they don't use their powers to serve humanity or whatever. Due to stigma around independent plants, as well as the cruel mistreatment of the first humanoid plant, Tesla, Knives absolutely despises humanity and wants to destroy them all, while Vash can't bring himself to because he sees humans are just doing what they can to survive, unlike plants who can fully sustain themselves. Yeah, so this difference does affect characters like Knives a lot more compared to Stampede, as in the 90s anime, it just gives this guy a one backhanded comment that makes Knives go Delulu older brother in an anime syndrome. While I'm not saying Knives is a sympathetic villain, rather I think Knives was just a character shown humanity's ugliest side and went from there, while Vash was shown humanity's most beautiful side, so it's kind of duality in Trigun Stampede, which I always think is a really cool theme, especially with twins. While both stories tell the overall story in a very drastic way, it's genuinely hard to say which one had the better story. I like both, I think both are genuinely very, very good, but since I have to pick a side here, I'm going with Trigun Stampede. I'm only saying this by the tiniest percentage, just because I know that slow burn and filler isn't everyone's cup of tea, hell it usually isn't my cup of tea, and Trigun Stampede has some pretty hard gut punches. I'm sorry, I know that the hand-drawn animation of Trigun is really good, and it's incredibly impressive how they were able to prevent the manga's art style from looking jank as fuck. And, well, let's be honest, a different studio would have made it look wonky as hell. But Trigun Stampede just blows the original animation out of the park. Not only are action sequences extremely dynamic with twirling shots, tilts, and zoomed in angles, but the models themselves look really, really good. Now I have to admit that there were some scenes where the frame rate did seem a little slow for my liking, but the rest felt snappy and at a completely normal frame rate, which is surprising. Although I think, and I could be wrong on this, so feel free to correct me in the comments, but I feel like the wider shots of characters running around or standing around were done with motion capture. I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like that theatrical movement that I usually see from motion captured 3D animations from Japan, like in video games, for example. I mean, even so, it doesn't look off either, because the scenes you could tell were animated by hand were incredibly smooth, and the most shocking part, how expressive these models are. Meryl especially had a lot of expression in her face, and the same goes with Vash too, especially in chase sequences with him. There were also some 2D portions now and then, mainly Wolfwood's flashback with Livio was entirely done in 2D for thematic reasons, I guess. Still, what little we do see of 2D blends very well with the 3D models that I actually didn't notice some shots were 2D until I saw GIFs on Tumblr. While the 90s anime is admittedly standard and a little stiff sometimes, but it does have some pretty thematically memorable shots. Scenes like Wolfwood's death, Knives and Vash facing off, and the intro have some really great shots that feel so memorable that I'd imagine a lot of ye old DeviantArt accounts from the early 2000s made a metric fuck ton of fan art they drew on their high school notebook recreating these scenes. The art style is not my favorite though. I think it's just the faces are a little too long for my liking. Bodies feel like they're almost Code Geass levels of long limbs, and I gotta admit that some characters kinda have same face syndrome. That, and coloring wise, it doesn't feel as vibrant as I think it's probably supposed to be when you look at the manga's coloring. Vash's red coat doesn't pop, and the backgrounds are so washed out that some shots do make the characters look kind of ill-fitting for the area on a coloring scale, or just make you think the animators ran out of paint so they had to pale everything up. It's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the 90s anime can be a bit stiff at times, which is fine for the time period it released, obviously, it was the 90s. Style-wise though, I do genuinely like both. 90s Trigun follows costuming schemes where basically all our main characters like Vash, Meryl, Knives, and more look like they're wearing costumes from the Fallout game series, while everyone else is dressed in Wild West clothing. This includes suits, suspenders, women wearing long skirts, and frilly blouses, like this is an early Edwardian era. While Trigun Stampede follows a more modern approach to the future, everyone outside of the main cast still wear their Wild West / early Edwardian era clothes, but the characters from the Seeds project, Vash, Meryl, and Wolfwood all basically wear a more contemporary idea for their designs. Especially Vash, where his prosthetic arm is now noticeable and his iconic red coat is given a more designer but futuristic-esque design to it. Hey, I guess Seeds thought Gucci was so important that they brought it along the journey, I guess. Well, Meryl is also sporting a more modern design of her outfit by replacing her cape with a cute oversized coat, her skirt with a pair of shorts, and a really cute beret. The people part of the Seeds project were also given a massive update to their design to match a more modern idea of what people would wear in the future. Instead of Rem wearing a classic 90s high-waisted jean and white tucked-in t-shirt that's actually making a really big comeback, she wears this tight gray suit thingy with some kind of futuristic tunic over it. I guess it does make sense for Rem to wear something a lot more fantastical when Trigun takes place 400 years in the future, but you know, there's something about Rem wearing jeans and a t-shirt that just makes her character design somehow feel more special and down to earth when you look at her. Overall, I'm sorry again, but I really have to give it to Trigun Stampede for this one, like, all the way. Like, there's a reason nobody would shut up about every episode airing, because the visuals were just amazing. I think both anime are valid ways to enjoy Trigun. You could watch one or both, but I think they both serve their own great experiences that it's just in different directions. It's actually pretty rare, in my opinion, for an anime from the late 90s to early 2000s to have an anime adaptation that stands on its own as well as the reboot does. At least for shonen anyway, since we all know the original 90s Sailor Moon holds up fantastically well on its own too. I think as a final thought, it does sound super biased to give it to Trigun Stampede because it's newer and sparkly and it was just so well done that it's kind of hard to pit it against something that was really well crafted for the time it was made, if that makes sense. Still, that doesn't mean 90s Trigun is bad at all. Unlike 2001 Fruits Basket's anime, I think both are genuinely good that I can easily recommend both. Just that I recommend Trigun Stampede a little more, since people these days probably don't have the patience for slow burn like the original. You guys let me know down below what you think though. Do you agree with anything in this video, or are there any anime verses you want to see me do? As always, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!